Okay, the live is up. Sergeants, will you begin your recordings?
PC recording good.
Cloud recording is up. Thank you. All right, good afternoon and welcome to today's primary budget hearing on consumer and workers protection. At this time, all panelists, please turn on your videos for verification purposes. To minimize disruption, all electronic devices put on silent or on vibrate mode. If anyone wishes to submit testimony, you may do so at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you. Chair, you may begin.
Thank you and good afternoon and welcome to fiscal 2023 preliminary budget hearing. My name is Marjorie Velasquez and I am the chair of the Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection. This afternoon, we'll be reviewing the proposed budget of the Department of Consumer Affairs and Worker Protection. Specifically, we're going to assess the programs and activities to ensure that the agency is serving the public in a fiscally responsible way. Fiscal 2023 prelim budget for the Department of Consumer Affairs totals $63 million, which includes nearly $32 million in personnel services funding to support 447 full-time positions. The budget also includes $31 million in other than personnel services to cover other general operating costs of the department. The funds in this fiscal plan are primarily allocated to resolve consumer and worker complaints, issue numerous licenses, educate and protect consumers, and ensure that businesses comply with the law. At today's hearing, we will examine the components of DCWP's budget with a particular focus on the department's savings program, budgeted headcount, and funding for the Office of Financial Empowerment. With regard to the department's savings program, I'm interested to know whether it will limit the department's ability to carry out its work. We'll also like to get status updates on Local Law 18 of 2021 related to the expansion of the availability of street vendor permits and how DCWP is implementing the expansion of the street vendor program and if additional resources will be needed. We would like to also hear how DCWP is working with the Office of Cannabis Management to know how and when NYC businesses can participate in this new category of business. And last, we will examine DCWP's reporting in the Prelim Mayor's Management Report, PMMR, to gain a better perspective on how well aligned its budget is with its performance. I would like now to welcome DCWP's Commissioner Vilda Vera Mayuga and her team. After the testimony, members will have the opportunity to follow up with questions for the commissioner. After that, I hope the commissioner and staff remain to listen to the public testify. I look forward to working with the agency and other interested parties in order to finalize the budget over the coming months. In closing, I'd like to thank the committee staff for working on putting this hearing together, including Florentine Cabore, John Russell, Stephanie Jones, Noah Mexler, as well as my staff, Nick Rollison, Jackie Cassan, Adrian Jadrick, Stephanie Rodriguez, and Alex Anderson. I will now ask the committee counsel to please swear in the commissioner.
Thank you so much, Chair. First, a few procedural items. I am Stephanie Jones, counsel of the committee, and I'll be moderating this hearing. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you're called on to testify, at which point you will be unmuted by the host. During the hearing, I will call on panelists to testify. Please listen for your name to be called, as I will periodically be announcing who the next panelist will be. At this hearing, as the chair said, we'll be inviting testimony from Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, and then following that, we will invite testimony from members of the public. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question of the administration or a specific panelist, please use the Zoom raise hand function, and I will call on you in order. We will be limiting council member questions to 5 minutes, which includes the time it takes to respond to your questions. For all panelists, when called up to testify, please state your name and the organization you represent, if any. Now, before I introduce our representatives from DCWP, I believe the chair would like to acknowledge council members present.
My apologies. I'd like to welcome all my colleagues, starting off with Councilmember Brewer, Councilmember Botcher, Councilmember Farias, Councilmember Ose, and Councilmember Menon.
Thank you, Chair. We will now call representatives of the administration to testify. We will be hearing testimony from Vilda Vera Mayuga, Commissioner of the Department. We will also be joined for questions by the following representatives from DCWP. Tamala Boyd, General Counsel, Benjamin Holt, Deputy Commissioner of the Office of Labor Policy and Standards, Nicole Davis, Executive Director of the Office of Financial Empowerment, Stephen Atinani, Executive Director of External Affairs, James Hurst, Assistant Commissioner of Enforcement, and Nick Ratza, Assistant Commissioner of Finance and Administration. Administration panelists, please raise your right hands and I will call on each of you individually to respond to the affirmation. Thank you. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Commissioner Mayuga.
I do.
Thank you, Commissioner. General Counsel Boyd.
I do.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner Holt.
I do.
Thank you. Executive Director Davis.
I do.
Thank you. Executive Director Atinani.
I do.
Thank you. Assistant Commissioner Hurst.
I do.
Thank you. And Assistant Commissioner Ratza. Thank you. This time, I'd like to invite Commissioner Mayuga to present her testimony.
Thank you. Muy buenas tardes, estimados concejales. Good afternoon, Chair Velazquez and council members. I am Vilda Vera Mayuga. I am celebrating 2 weeks today as Commissioner of our city's Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. It is my pleasure to be here today with members of our agency's senior leadership team to share with you a bit about DCWP's work and proposed budget. Just 2 weeks ago, I was just wrapping up almost 4 years at the New York Department of State, where I oversaw 4 divisions, including Consumer Protection and New Americans. And previously, I worked on various capacities at the State's Department of Labor, overseeing worker protection. So coming to DCWP feels like a great way to bring it all together. The best part of coming to this agency is that they have been doing outstanding work way before I arrived. DCWP licenses more than 51,000 businesses and individuals in more than 40 industries. We serve New Yorkers by enforcing essential consumer rights under the Consumer Protection Law, enforcing workplace laws such as the Paid Safe and Sick Leave Law and the Fair Workweek Law, and offering programming that increases access in our very own city to high-quality financial services for New Yorkers. Now, I believe that the beauty of these agencies' work is that it serves all New Yorkers because we are all consumers and we all work towards a brighter future for ourselves and our families. Mayor Adams recognizes that we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create real change for New Yorkers, to build a strong and equitable economic recovery through our small businesses by supporting and promoting tools for their compliance and success. Endeavor to ensure more stable jobs and stable incomes for our workers and restore dignity in their work. And return hard-earned money to our working families by stepping in and holding corporations accountable for their illegal business practices and leveraging free financial empowerment programming such as financial counseling and New York City free tax prep. Now let's move on to our budget and new mandates we have been charged with recently. Our fiscal year 23 preliminary budget is $62.9 million. We are authorized at 447 staff with an active headcount of 401. And during the current fiscal year, we conducted 46,000 inspections, completed 73,000 tax returns, and opened more than 500 new worker protection cases. Our budget and staffing support existing and new mandates, and those new mandates include expanded regulatory authority of general and mobile food vendors, expanded protections for fast food employees, and new protections for food delivery workers. One of our tasks is to support small businesses, And DCWP does this by prioritizing giving small businesses the tools they need to comply with the various laws and regulations on our books. I am constantly amazed at the entrepreneurial spirit of New Yorkers, and I'm especially proud to live in a city that hosts thousands of small businesses, including many that are owned by our city's immigrant communities. Knowing that it is always best to get information in the language we are most comfortable, at DCWP, we are committed to language access, developing comprehensive and plain language guidance on our laws, and streamlining our services both online and in person. We consistently leverage various methods of outreach and education through business education days, the visit and inspection programs, and legal webinars for stakeholders like DCWP 101. In all, we ensure that businesses can meet with us, ask questions, and feel secure in their understanding of their responsibilities operating in New York City. We have streamlined licensing by adjusting staffing to take on 50% greater volume of online submissions for new and renewal license applications, creating a new appointment-based system to prepare applicants in advance for their license submissions and facilitate quicker meeting times, and acknowledging customer feedback by adjusting office hours at our licensing centers to be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., which better accommodates the workday schedule for businesses. As we constantly look for ways to serve all New Yorkers and help them thrive, we work with businesses to correct violations before issuing fines. And to that end, since 2014, businesses have cured more than 18,000 DCWP-related violations, saving themselves $6.4 million in fines. Thanks to our partnership with you and the full council, we will increase business savings because of additional cures and relief measures passed late last year. Moving on to workers, we administer the Paid Safe and Sick Leave Law, the Fair Workweek Law, the Freelance Easton Free Act, and delivery worker protection. Not only do we enforce these workplace laws, but we also engage in robust outreach and education, develop new materials tailored to the realities of the crisis, and work with the council to craft new protections both for this specific moment and beyond. Since 2020, we have received close to 25,000 intakes related to workers' rights, secured $5.5 million in restitution on behalf of 9,500 workers, and held more than 450 events dedicated to workers' issues. DCWP partnered with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, Health and Hospitals, and other sister agencies and city entities to distribute paid, safe, and sick leave law materials at COVID-19 testing locations and vaccine sites. And we joined Test and Trace street teams in the neighborhoods hardest hit by COVID, amplifying resources and rights available to them. We also adapted our paid media campaigns to address the realities of the pandemic with advertisements on digital platforms, in ethnic media and radio, targeted outdoor ads on bus shelters, and linked NYC kiosks, and at medical offices and pharmacies to promote our worker protections. The new worker protections afforded to New Yorkers in 2021 include just cause for fast food workers, ensuring that they can no longer be arbitrarily fired and that they have a right to reclaim their former job if laid off or illegally fired. We recently secured $4,400 in back pay to two workers at a Subway in Brooklyn. Our settlement not only secured restitution for the workers, but also require the restaurant to implement new policies that comply with the law, distribute a new progressive discipline policy to its employees, and train its supervisors to ensure workplace-wide compliance moving forward. In the words of the workers themselves, I hope you can see it on the screen, it's 2021 and we're in the middle of a pandemic. The least employers can do is respect their rights to a fair work week. I am proud that New York has protections for employees like this in place and encourage New Yorkers that encourage workers that are being mistreated to come forward. There are also new protections that pass for hotel workers. which mean that long-time workers at hotels are required to up to 30 weeks of severance pay if they were laid off during the pandemic, and have the right to be retained at their place of employment for 90 days if a hotel is transferred or sold. Most recently, there are new protections for third-party food delivery workers, including, beginning next month, the right to better control their delivery routes, the ability to receive timely payment for work, and in 2023, a new minimum pay rate to be set by us here at the CWP. These are critical economic and job protections that we are proud to implement for our essential workers. And of course, we must talk about our foundational work, consumer protection, and securing restitution and equitable relief for consumers who have been deceived and defrauded through illegal business practices. Since its inception in 1969, this agency has secured millions of dollars on behalf of consumers. For example, a mother who used her paycheck to buy furniture for her family and it was never delivered. An immigrant worker who was illegally pressured and deceived into signing papers in a language they did not understand. A young person excited to buy their first new phone, but found out what they had was secondhand, and they were misled into an expensive financing agreement. Most recently, just last week, we shared the results of a years-long investigation into an issue that hurts so many daily: student loan debt relief. As an expert on consumer matters that impact an individual's ability to financial empowerment, DCWP conducted key research on the life-altering impact of student loan debt. That research, paired with DCWP authorities, led to investigations of credible allegations against Berkeley College, including findings of the school harassing students with illegal debt collection practices and misrepresenting financial products offered to students to pay for their classes. As one student told us, recruiters communicated to them that they would receive a Berkeley scholarship to attend school part-time for only $200 per semester. Over the next year, they received high grades and felt excited about their future. But by the following year, the student was told that the scholarship no longer existed for them and that it had actually only covered a quarter of tuition costs and fees. In fact, the student was then told that they already owed $13,000 in federal loans, of which they were not aware. When the student began looking over the financial aid documents in their file, many of the documents they had never even seen before. There was even a document they had never seen before that contained their signature. Through our investigation into these practices, we were able to secure $20 million in debt relief for Berkeley students, and up to 75 students will receive restitution from a $350,000 fund. As we help consumers avoid falling prey to scams and recover monies from unscrupulous actors, our Office of Financial Empowerment works with our numerous partners throughout the city to offer financial advice. Since the start of our Financial Empowerment Center program, we have helped New Yorkers reduce their debt by $84 million and increase their savings by $10 million. Our counselors are not only trained to help individuals and families improve their credit or access safe and affordable banking products, but are also able to assist eligible clients access public service loan forgiveness programs, prepare to fill out the FAFSA, or address the specific financial needs of folks with disabilities and their family members. To give you an example of that work, we had a client come in with thousands of dollars in debt and 8 open collection accounts. She worked with our counselor to prepare and strategize for settling her collection accounts, and between her first meeting in June and December, she was able to close out all 8 collections. 2 collections were completely removed from her credit report, resulting in her credit score increasing by more than 20 points. After working with our counselor, she was even able to start building a nest egg of $1,700. In July of 2021, DCWP and our New York City Free Tax Prep providers, along with New York City Opportunity and the Children's Cabinet, launched a campaign to boost uptake and help families file their tax return for the advanced federal child tax credit. To raise awareness, DCWP armed agencies across the city and more than 5,000 community-based organizations with communication tools in 10 languages, and we've reached more than 1 million New Yorkers about the child tax credit through a combination of email campaigns to 500,000 SNAP and cash assistance clients, 403,000 city employee emails, text messages to 185,000 households with children in targeted zip codes, paid digital advertising campaigns, and direct in-person and virtual outreach. DCWP launched its 20th annual tax campaign to encourage New Yorkers to file their taxes for free with New York City free tax spread. And our outreach includes direct constituent mailers, outdoor, radio, digital, and community and ethnic media ads, along with work with elected officials like you, sister agencies, and the 3 library systems to distribute brochures and provide referrals. For many of our city's working families and individuals, a tax return can serve as the single largest paycheck for the year. And too often money is left on the table because folks might not understand that they are eligible for tax credits, or they use a paid tax preparer who charges them for services that would otherwise be free through New York City free tax spread. As I am sure you would agree, the most satisfying part of our job is to hear about success stories like this one, where a recent filer who learned about the child tax credit through their pastor was able to receive more than $30,000 in their tax refund after filing with New York City free tax spread. For our working families, outcomes such as this through DCWP's programming are transformative. Last month, Mayor Adams announced a proposal to have the state authorize an increase in the city's matching contribution for the EITC from 5% to up to 30% depending on income level. This will be the first increase in the EITC match in nearly 20 years. The Earned Income Tax Credit is one of the most effective poverty reduction programs in history. Expanding it will allow New York State and New York City to get money to hardworking families and build a stronger foundation to address ongoing economic inequality. We call upon all our partners to join with us to support authorizing an increase in New York City's EITC match and get this done for New Yorkers. I conclude today by reiterating how excited I am to be part of this team at DCWP, this administration under Mayor Adams, and to work with you, Chair Velasquez, and members of the committee on behalf of New Yorkers. Our work to support our city's small businesses, our workers, and our consumers requires deep and close partnership with the council. We're always available and willing to work on policies that support the economic lives of New Yorkers, and in this unique moment, create a sustainable and equitable recovery for all. Thank you for the invitation to testify today, and I look forward to your questions and our discussion.
Thank you. I will now turn it over to questions from Chair Velasquez.
Thank you so much. And I want to acknowledge Councilmember Kagan, who has joined us. So thank you for joining us. Commissioner, thank you not only for coming here today, but for your presentation. It was unique in the fact that it provided a lot of the information that we need to see firsthand. And I guess I just want to get into this street vendor permits. Can you just give us a status update on the implementation of this legislation?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair Velasquez, and thank you again for the opportunity. Since we started, in the office was placed at DCWP, just like with other enforcement that falls under our purview, we started with an education first approach to get out and make sure that those impacted understood what was required and expected to be able to be in compliance. We certainly have that statutory mandate to enforce the vending code, but through the extensive vendor education, we were able to conduct about 560 educational inspections and 27 educational walkthroughs in partnership with local business improvement districts. We continue to work with stakeholders and obviously with all of you as well, where there is a need identified to get out in specific areas and make sure that we're bringing the information to those impacted by the Office of Street Vendor Enforcement.
And so a little bit more on that, right? Local Law 18 of 2021, it allows for the issuance of 400 new street vendor permits each year for 10 years, which will bring about like the total of 4,000 permits by 2032. Just wanted to know, what's your current head count? Is it sufficient in implementing this legislation?
Thank you, Council Member. Yes, we have our office is fully staffed right now. We are carrying out our duties under the mandate.
What's the head count?
24 inspectors.
I do want to mention, Chair, that and thank you for referencing the law. The augmentation or the increase of mobile food vending permits is actually something that the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene is empowered to do. They are still the licensing and permitting authority for mobile food vendors. So that augmentation is and implementation is being handled by that agency.
Okay, well, following that, can you tell me what the challenges in licensing and enforcing have been for the street vendor permitting?
So on the enforcement piece, but certainly, you know, we're getting out there, we're doing the education piece first. There's a lot of, I think, different conflicting interest when it comes to the stakeholders, and part of the establishment of the Office of Street Vendor Enforcement was also an advisory board. So we've also been meeting through that mechanism. There's a report that we will be issuing in the next few weeks, in the next several weeks, and show our findings there, where we've been able to have more in-depth conversations with all stakeholders. In terms of the licensing, Steve, I don't know if there's something.
Yeah, I think, Chair, I really appreciate the question. I think ultimately, no matter if DCWP or any other agency was designated with the Office of Street Vendor Enforcement, the fundamental complication with vending is that it requires an analysis and implementation of a patchwork of laws that are across the administrative code as well as state law as well. So that's the fundamental, I think, challenge that this agency as well as our sister agencies deal with, quite frequently. As the Commissioner mentioned, the advisory board is taking its first stab to kind of assess those varying laws and rules to put forward proposals where we've received support not only from vendor advocates, but also brick and mortar stakeholders, as well as our sister agencies. We're looking forward to sharing that with the council over the next few weeks. And then, of course, are encouraging the council to take whatever next steps are necessary to kind of implement a number of those proposals that are going to be forthcoming.
I appreciate that. Just to finish off the street vendors, I really just want to understand what is going on now. I understand the advisory board is meeting, and I think when you say a couple of weeks, we're expecting something around April, right? From those results and those conversations, right?
That's
cool.
Right.
That's awesome. But I think what we need to talk about what's going on right now in our streets and what our street vendors have to face day to day. So one of me comes to mind, and what we've been seeing is the enforcement unit function with regards to illegal street vending. How does that work? And can you guide us through any collaborations with any other agencies, and how is it supposed to work, and how has it been working?
I see. Thank you. Yes. So, our enforcement team basically has been getting out. The number of inspections we've conducted is pretty level with the number of complaints we've received. And we work, again, with elected officials, depending on where the complaints are coming, also in terms of areas that have a high number of vendors, make sure that we target those locations as well to ensure that there's a license activity, and the time, manner, and place is another area that we cover in terms of our regulations. In terms of working with other agencies, if it's something that doesn't fall within our purview, we would then issue referrals. For example, NYPD is still charged with anything that has to do with the selling of counterfeit articles or vending in the MTA. If it's parkland, in the parks area, then we would transfer it over and notify, the Department of Parks. And so those are some of the, I don't know, let me know if this is what you're looking for, but basically that's how we've been operating, get complaints, get out there, again, keep the education going, and then work with other agencies if it's an area of the law that falls under their purview.
And so majority of street vendors are often immigrants and speak other languages than English. How do you conduct outreach and ensure that vendors do receive the message in their spoken language?
Sure. So we are very proud, we're very aware, certainly of just all businesses, right? As I said on my presentation, small business owners, there's the entrepreneur spirit of our immigrant communities is very high. And so we're aware of that. We do our efforts also in our hiring. So right now, we, for example, cover 22 languages in our enforcement team, and we are strategic about it. If we know of a particular area that perhaps there's a prevalence in a language, we will make sure that that's the inspector that is going out there. If it's a language that we don't cover, then certainly we would make use of Language Line, which covers, more than 185 languages through the phone. And similarly, written materials, digital media, anything that we're putting out there, depending on where we are doing that, we are going to be taking into account the language needs of the community.
One of the first things, thank you, Commissioner, for that, but one of the first things and something that this agency in general prioritizes is language access. I think you heard that firsthand from the Commissioner in her opening remarks today, and also, as she mentioned, the 22 different languages that are spoken just in our enforcement division. That does not include our outreach team, where we have 7 additional languages native to that team. Our partnerships with so many stakeholders, including the Street Vendor Project, where we leverage their expertise and communication, as well as our sister agencies. One of the first things that we did when we were standing up the Office of Street Vendor Enforcement, and I do have to credit the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene on this, as well as they provided a tremendous amount of support and expertise in developing some of this collateral, but we created plain language inspection checklists. Those checklists are available to the public, are disseminated to vendors as well as any interested parties in 11 different languages, from Wolof to, of course, English, Chinese, Haitian Creole, you name it. Those plain language checklists offer a guide to vendors so that they know when they receive that information, if they're in compliance with all the items on those checklists, both for general and mobile food vendors, they will not be issued a citation by the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. So I do want to just highlight that priority, and a priority that remains, of course, to this day.
Thank you. And I didn't catch about how many folks do you have with who are able to translate and who are able to be available during enforcement?
We cover 22 languages in our
No.
enforcement.
How many
team.
people are there?
Oh, in enforcement for those. Oh, general enforcement we have 63 out in the field. Yeah.
63 in general, 24 dedicated to street vendors.
That's perfect. So I'd like to change topics if that's okay with y'all, or would you like to add anything more to street vendors that we haven't covered?
Are you talking to us?
Yes, I am talking to y'all. Yeah. How we do?
I know. No, I think that covers it. I think continue always the conversation, and if there's something that I know there's media, a lot of reporting that happens in there, but certainly if you see something with your constituents directly, please reach out. I really mean it what I said. Obviously, for all these laws to make sense, and we need to work together, and we see it as a partnership. So please let us know if it's not through this today, like separately. We're happy to have further discussions and make sure that we're addressing the concerns.
Thank you so much on that one. So we are switching to one of mine and Botcher's and certainly Marte's favorite conversations. It's outdoor dining. Weather's nice today, so sun's shining on this awesome legislation that we're going to get passed. Now, can we have an open conversation? Should outdoor dining and cafes become law, how will the rollout of enforcement look like?
Well, the open restaurants program, right, is right now under the purview of the Department of Transportation, and we support that fully. We don't see a role for DCWP when it comes to open restaurants. Again, the Department of Transportation did a tremendous job in standing up a program that helped, what is I think like 12,000 restaurants and helped save like 100,000 jobs. So we don't see a need to change that, in terms of their covering and moving that forward. I know that they've committed to, in their presentation to the council, right? I think it was maybe last month, on building up also an enforcement and a permitting unit.
And what additional resources you think will be needed?
Oh, gosh, I defer to the Department of Transportation on that. It's just not an area where we're involved or feel that there's any need for us to get involved, considering the work the Department of Transportation has done with that.
All right, thank you. And I think as our discussions have kept on moving over there, DOT had said that they plan on hiring 30 people to deal with the licensing and enforce outdoor dining. From your understanding, from your experience so far, do you think that's enough?
I don't think I can dare answer, for them.
No, I mean, I understand different levels of agencies, but you literally just said that you have 63 folks helping with translation. 24 dedicated entirely to translating during enforcement. So, I want to make sure when we're talking about the transition between you to DOT that we're actually facilitating and making sure that this is going to work for all.
Sure. I mean, we're happy to provide them with any of our knowledge and share information with, obviously, our sister agencies to make sure that, to the extent that we can help them with their setup, we'll be there. Did you have something that may be helpful?
Sure, Chair. I do want to be very clear about what our enforcement stature and our headcount vis-a-vis what DOT has asked for. I think the most important thing to note here is that with the permanent open restaurant program and the forthcoming appropriation to DOT in that sense, there's going to be new capacity to regulate a space that didn't exist prior to that. When DCWP, for example, administered its Sidewalk Cafe program, DCWP had exactly 0 dedicated staff to Sidewalk Cafe. So when you talk about 0 to 30 for the Department of Transportation, that's a tremendous amount of capacity increase. And of course, defer to the Department of Transportation and their expertise to speak to whatever needs they may need to regulate that space. In regards to the 63 folks in the enforcement division, that is an all-encompassing number that not only encompasses the 51,000 businesses that we referenced in our PowerPoint for licensees, but nearly every business in New York City that's regulated by price posting or truth in pricing laws, for example. Our staff, and credit to my colleague James Hurst here at the dais, is doing their work as best as possible and with all the strategic expertise and deployment to ensure that they're doing their work. So as the commissioner mentioned, the open restaurants program, I think, has been run tremendously by the Department of Transportation, and we think will be run tremendously by the Department of Transportation in a permanent capacity with the staffing that they have requested.
Okay, thank you for that. And now switching gears a little bit back to the Office of Financial Empowerment. One of the mayor's blueprint for New York City economic recovery includes expanding financial empowerment services, bringing financial counseling to workforce centers, and launching a mobile unit to offer free tax preparation, which by tomorrow they'll be in the Bronx in my district. So please know that. Financial counseling, benefits enrollment, job training, tenant protection services, and other critical resources in neighborhoods across the city. What's your department's plan in implementing this vision?
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you for inviting us to your district. We are definitely excited to continue to bring the information out, especially in a mobile unit, right? In a mobile way. Us going to constituents and not necessarily always expecting them to come to our offices. So really appreciate that. visit. In terms of financial empowerment and some of the initiatives with the blueprint, I mean, again, all of these things that we do related to consumer protection and helping people save money from scams, and in terms of worker protections and increasing people's access to their hard-earned money and all that, right? It's wonderful to have, but then we also obviously want to take that step in making sure they know what to do with that money. And, you know, when we help them get these large refunds or small, whatever amount is going to put money in their pockets, is what we're looking to do and to enhance, because we have seen how that really makes a difference in New Yorkers' lives. We are still in the initial stages of doing all that planning, and as we get all of those details out, we would be happy to share them. And again, getting out there to the communities to ensure that once the programs are set and ready to run, we will then want to be working in partnership with you to get the information out and maximize the number of New Yorkers that can take advantage of these expanded services.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you for that. I forgot to mention one more thing about the Office of Financial Empowerment. The prelim budget's right now nearly 24 million, and it includes 15 million for universal college expansion savings, known as baby bonds. The $8 million that are remaining is allocated to the Office of Financial Empowerment in their traditional work. What's your department's role in the baby bonds program, and how are you collaborating with DOE in implementing it?
I believe the contract right now is at the Comptroller's office, and that's really the last step for us to move forward. We are a pass-through agency for the 15 million to be able to fund those accounts. That's basically it.
So what's the outreach going to look like? Any specific ad campaigns, engagement tools that the agency is utilizing in informing New Yorkers about this Office of Financial Empowerment?
I don't have this. Do you have the specifics of that right now? I think we're still working those details.
We don't have any programmatic responsibility.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
Right.
this is what happens when it's only 2 weeks, and I think I know it, but I don't. And they try to stop me before I get them all in trouble.
I just want to clarify. Hi, I'm Tamala Boyd. I'm the general counsel. As the commissioner said, our contract is really a pass-through contract. It's a way to get the money to Kids Rise. We do not have any programmatic responsibility under the contract for the program. So all of that will be done by DOE and Kids Rise.
Okay, that's excellent to know. And then, is there any contract being issued, to the MWBE programs? And can you walk us through how you select the vendors for the Office of Financial Empowerment?
For our other program, for the
traditional work.
office
We're moving from baby bonds to traditional work now.
Got it. No, thank you so much. Yes, no, we certainly have our partners, and I will ask Executive Director Nicole or Nick to perhaps go over how we go about the selection process.
Yeah, so for the my name is Nick, sorry. Thank you, Council, thank you, Commissioner. We contract with nonprofits, and they don't really fall under the MWBE regulations. So they wouldn't be considered MWBE, right? So in terms of the partners, Nicole could explain more who they are. Yeah.
Sure. I'm Nicole Davis, the Executive Director for the Office of Financial Empowerment. We used a competitive bidding process for the selection of our contracted financial empowerment providers, both for financial counseling under the NYC Free Financial Empowerment Center program and for free tax prep under the NYC Free Tax Prep Coalition.
Thank you. And can you guide us through this selection of, you said competitive bidding, how many folks do you end up with, and what's the bidding process like?
It's it's a request for a proposal. We did an RFP.
Okay.
We selected 15 vendors for the annual tax season initiative and 7 contractors for the financial empowerment program.
Great. Thank you for that. And We're still recovering from COVID, and I wanted to know a little bit more about COVID relief funding. DCWP recognized about 2.6 million in COVID-19 relief federal funding from the American Relief Act for the recovery efforts. Do we have an appropriate funding budgeted for these efforts in fiscal 2023, or do you anticipate budget gaps?
We don't anticipate receiving federal money during fiscal year 23.
Will there be any gaps?
No, we don't anticipate that either.
Okay, now heading into marijuana. So last year, the New York State legalized adult use cannabis by passing the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. The Office of Cannabis Management issues licenses and develops the regulations outlining how and when businesses can participate in the new industry. Can you update us on your conversation with the Office of Cannabis Management in implementing the law?
We don't have a role in the implementation of that.
Do you know how these regulations will impact New York City, and what's the city's role in this implementation?
No, we just, not something that comes to be within our purview.
Yeah, I believe the law itself expressly, makes it a state function. Of course, we're happy, Chair, to put you in touch with other folks, perhaps in the administration or the mayor's office, that may have a touch point with their colleagues in Albany in terms of the implementation of this. But for DCWP in particular, we do not have a touch point.
Got it. And finally, when it comes to gaming, DCWP collects revenue from bingo and games of chance. Can you tell us what is this revenue line and at what extension the city can regulate online gaming?
Let me check here with the team and find out if we have that information. If not, we can get back to you. We have that with us.
I have the revenue, but I don't know if we regulate online gaming for bingo and game of chance.
We don't regulate online gaming. We have some licensing responsibility through the state for bingo and games of chance. The fact of the matter is we do very, very little work in that area.
Yeah, as our general counsel mentioned just now, our regulation of games of chance is really a function of history of New York City more than a active and modern revenue stream for the agency. In fact, I think as recently as a few months ago, we were in active conversations with the council discussing amendments relating to the bingo law, just to ensure or to have an open conversation with the council about whether there was really a need for existing regulations there. So long and short of it is that we do not have a regulatory authority over online gaming, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you for that. I'm finished with my questions, so I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, Stephanie.
Thank you, Chair. I will now call on other council members to ask their questions in the order they've used the Zoom raise hand function. If you'd like to ask a question, if you've not yet raised your hand on Zoom, please raise it now. Council members, please keep your questions to 5 minutes. The Sergeant at Arms will keep a timer and will let you know when your time is up. You should begin once the Sergeant has started the timer. First, we'll hear from Councilmember Kagan, followed by Councilmember Bottcher, and then Councilmember Abreu. Councilmember Kagan?
Starting time.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Chair Velasquez, for this amazing hearing and for this opportunity. Thank you very, very much. And of course, thank you, Commissioner, for sharing all information about the work of Department of Consumer Affairs. I have two questions, but they're interrelated. I would like to ask about street vendor situation. Right, today is March 15th, so I would say it's 2.5 months of the 2022. And I would say that situation with vendors is exactly the same like it was 1 year ago. People who legitimately would like to become street vendors and to obtain license, they cannot do this. If you go right now to Department of Consumer Affairs website, the only way for me to become street vendor is to find some American veteran and to convince him or her, so I pay money, so I will work under the license of this esteemed veteran. That's the only way for me to get this general license in order to be a legal vendor, street vendor in New York City. And on another side, in terms of enforcement, again, like there are certain spaces in New York City that are no vendors, like no street vendors zones, a lot of zones like this. And I see plenty of vendors in these zones. It could be legal or illegal, but it doesn't matter. Even if you're a legal vendor, you cannot sell your stuff in this territory because it's designated no vendor zone. And I can go on and on and on, but in Southern Brooklyn, in my district, specifically on Steelville Avenue or on 86th Street, you can sell anything at any time. You can sell everything at any time. No consequences, no enforcement. Last year, Alliance for Coney Islands filed 500 complaints through 311. Only 19 of them were answered. So I hope this year will be some changes on both sides. We need more legal vendors at the proper place, selling properly, at proper conditions. And so I have problem with both legally obtaining license and enforcement of this license. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And yes, we understand that, licensing and permitting caps remain an issue of concern for both the street food vendors and brick and mortar businesses. Our goal when it comes to enforcement is certainly make sure that we're doing our work equitably. And we know that this is a topic that is top of mind for many New Yorkers. As you said, everybody's trying to make a living. We work within certain restrictions, in terms of what the current law has in the books when it comes to some licenses and all of that. And we will continue to try to do whatever we can to make sure that it makes sense, especially, like I said, in an equitable manner. I'll just ask from an executive director here, Steve, and see if there's anything else to add in that area. I'm going to make sure that, there's more to share and, predates me, and they know they can share that with you to try to answer your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner. And it's great to see you again, Council Member. And I know that just a week or so ago, you and I and our senior advisor for intergovernmental affairs met to discuss a lot of the vending conditions in your district. We are actively working with the mayor's office, specifically the community affairs unit, to augment our presence, especially during the spring and summer months, which we know are a particular concern for the conditions that you're mentioning. And I would love to follow up with you offline to discuss some tangible developments in that space to let you know about increased and regular work that we're going to be doing with our sister agencies. Because as you know, Council Member, the issues impacting your constituency, and quite frankly, so many issues of vending citywide really do implicate so many other different agencies, but we are committed to a singular approach and a task force and team that will be out to help mitigate a lot of the concerns that you mentioned. So I'm looking forward to talking with you offline about this, and please know that your concerns are very much heard by us, and we're looking forward to working with you.
I hope so.
Thank you, Council Member. Next, we'd like to invite Council Member Bottcher to ask questions, followed by Council Member Abreu, and then Council Member Brewer. Council Member Bottcher.
Starting time.
Hi, my question is about price gouging during the pandemic. In 2020, we heard a lot about price gouging on things like masks and sanitizer. This most recent variant, the Omicron variant, we heard a lot about price gouging for test kits, people charging 2-3 times the price for test kits. As the lead agency tasked with enforcing laws against price gouging, can you tell us, has your agency been sufficiently staffed to enforce these laws? And under this proposed budget in the coming fiscal year, do you believe that you'll have the staff to enforce price gouging as the pandemic continues?
Thank you, Council Member. Price gouging, it was one of those challenges and curveballs that I think the pandemic threw at us. And we definitely had to act very quickly, as you mentioned, with the agency charged with enforcing laws related to price gouging. And as soon as, that came up during the pandemic, we did act quickly to issue an emergency rule to prohibit the price gouging. And now I think it addresses some of what you were asking. Because we did that work, we are now made that rule permanent. So we can certainly use it to cover future states of emergency, which is what really ties to a lot of activating the price gouging statute. So I think that really helps us, having gone through that experience. And in a very short period of time when the pandemic first hit, we got like 14,000 complaints, more than 14,000 complaints, and had to react quickly to address. We should certainly, stood up enforcement. We shifted some resources to address that immediate need of our constituents to make sure that we could support New Yorkers during that period of time. Because of that amazing work, that it all happened before I was here. So, like I said, also in my statement initially, I'm coming into an agency that has been doing amazing work for a long time. Those complaints came down substantially because we were able to really act very quickly, set it up, go through those procedural steps that I think a lot of us don't realize are needed before we can sometimes take some action. And we were able to just react and address the concerns of our New Yorkers.
So the unit responsible with price gouging, you staffed it up, you shifted resources to have the personnel there. Are those personnel still in place?
Yes, the personnel hasn't changed. It's part of our enforcement unit. And so, we talked about that, I think, at the beginning with, in response to some of Chair Velasquez's questions. And yes, we're constantly looking at what is happening. I know you make us aware, right, as our elected officials who are another touch point with constituents, to let us know what is going on so we can make sure that we strategize with our resources and continue to do our work in the best, most efficient and effective way. We want to be able to have an impact, and this was one of those cases.
Also, Councilmember, we enjoy a regular and very strong relationship with the Office of the Attorney General, who, as you may know, also employs price gouging regulations and does a lot of great work in that space. That, in addition to our purview and expertise in the space, really, I think, in total encompasses, appropriate resources to kind of mitigate any ongoing concerns there. But as the Commissioner mentioned, we're always willing to take in any constituent complaints or inquiries as it relates to this issue.
It's great to hear that in the proposed budget, you're pretty confident that you'll be able to continue the good work you're doing with price gouging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. I see that Councilmember Abreu has his hand raised, so we'd like to invite him to ask questions.
Starting time.
Well, thank you can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Well, I just want to thank Chair Velasquez, and also would like to thank the agency for presenting today. My question has a lot to do with the Fair Isn't Free Act. Just wanted to see, I know that Councilmember Bottcher and I share a lot of freelancers in our district. Would like to know how many staffers are currently enforcing the Fair Isn't Free Act?
Thank you, Councilmember. You are my council member, by the way, so you get a special shout out for that. Thank you. It's good to see you in this way. The Freelance Isn't Free Act, yeah, certainly it is. We're very proud. It's certainly we're leading the nation in giving the estimated more than 500,000 freelancers in New York City. I don't know how many are in your district, but in New York City overall, we have even more than 500,000 freelancers. And, it does give them the right to written contracts, timely payments, freedom from retaliation. We want to make sure that the work that they're doing, they're getting paid for it in the right way and timely. And it is a line of work that we do as part of our Office of Labor and Policy Standards. It's an all-encompassing staff, or our staff is always addressing different issues. But more specifically, I want to make sure that our director here of our Office of Labor and Policy Standards can give you more specifics as to how we're going about to ensuring that that particular law is addressing the needs of freelancers.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Council Member, for the question. My name is Benjamin Holt. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for our Office of Labor Policy and Standards. So in response to your question, we have 2 full-time court navigators who staff that program, responding on the front lines to calls and complaints coming in from freelancers, be they by phone, walk-in, over email. And then we have a supervising attorney that works with them to oversee their work. And one thing that's important to know about the Freelancers and Free Act is it looks a little bit different from our other enforcement work in the worker protection sphere. We don't actually conduct investigations. What we do under the Freelancers and Free Law is really facilitate an information exchange. By notifying a hiring party that there's been a complaint, we'll then solicit information from them that we then give to the worker to help them move forward their claim. But we don't have formal enforcement authority. After we go through our process, we do what's called court navigation. So we'll talk to workers about the different resources that are available to them. That might be in relation to interpretation, how to go forward in small claims court, referrals to private attorneys. But the formal enforcement authority a worker has is they can then file a private case in court.
So just to be clear, there is no formal authority by DWCP to investigate and also obtain the remedies. Obtaining the financial in the same way you can with workers. You don't have that formal authority.
Yeah, the way the Freelancers and Free Law was written, it gives us this kind of intermediary function where we're really working as to be the front line to receive complaints, help workers navigate the different systems and resources that are available to them, but we do not have formal enforcement authority.
Okay.
Now, I will just add to that briefly, there is a separate part of the law that allows the law department to file a case in state court, including to investigate that case when there's been a pattern and practice of violation.
Got it.
That is something we
If you don't mind me ask another follow-up to that. So you have 2 staffers and 1 supervising attorney. How many cases a year would you say you're getting, or at least complaints, or, if you can ballpark it or give specifics about freelance, people submitting complaints for Freelancers and Free Act?
Sure. It can range. It's in several hundreds every year. I believe last year we had about 265 complaints. The year before that was almost 500. It's been in that range on a year-to-year basis. And we do report all these numbers in our annual report for our Office of Labor Policy and Standards, which is available on our website and provided to Council.
I want to note importantly that just in this past calendar year, that we returned over $600,000 back to freelancers based on the work of course, our Deputy Commissioner and his team. So it is an effective... So
you do have the authority then?
No, what happens is that basically we help the freelancers, right, go about the system. That's what we call them, navigators, right, because it helps you navigate in the system to obtain the remedies. And so
Time
it's
expired.
not... I
right.
can't continue. Okay, sorry.
Well, I'll just say to conclude that I'm going to be looking for a budget that hopefully includes capacity to be able to meet the demand of cases coming along. And of course, to the extent you don't have the formal authority, we'll work with the mayor's office on that. Thank you so much.
And can I add something? Okay, thank you. Sorry, this is new to me. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. So you're nodding. Councilmember Abreu, just also, if I heard you also say so many in your district, my district. So if you think there's something that we should be doing to also get out there and share the information, Again, we have all these laws in the books and things, but if the people that are supposed to take advantage of them don't know about them, then
Yeah,
we haven't
definitely.
done our work. So.
No, you're all doing great work, and definitely, I'm sure we'll be able to work together, amplify the service, the great service that you're providing. I just want to make sure you have all the resources at your disposal to carry out your work. So thank you so much again.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember. I see Councilmember Brewer has her hand raised to ask a question. Councilmember?
Starting time.
Thank you very much. I have a few questions. First of all, I paid and sick leave, of course, as you know, was my original bill. The Mayor de Blasio used to take credit, but it was my bill. And I know that you talked a little bit about how you're going to do outreach, but I wanted to know a little bit more about how you are specifically, because there are a whole lot of New Yorkers who still don't know about it. And I also wanted to know how are you sort of engaging some of the smaller businesses, again, along the same line, so that they are aware of the law and in compliance. I think CSS has done a report on that. So could you that's number one. Number two, I know that the chair asked about cannabis. It's they're already selling, pretending that the law has already passed, as you know. So we have constituent calls about vape and dispensary, so we want to know how many new, not only on the cannabis, but how many new tobacco licenses were issued compared to last year. And of course, with the cannabis expected to start at the end of the year, I guess if you could just help us a little bit between the tobacco, the e-cigarette, the cannabis, because they're all putting it up in their stores like they're ready to go. And of course, we all have the trucks, which I guess are illegal, selling cannabis right now, even in candy. And then the third issue, of course, is my favorite, this dark store issue. So obviously it's a buildings department, I'm waiting. It's Department of City Planning, I'm waiting. But these stores are trying to put up like they're a grocery store. They don't have, to the best of my knowledge, any prices on any products. So I'm wondering what you're doing about that issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Member. And you'll be happy to know my staff was very quick to let me know that that was your legislation, that's your bill. So the people who are doing the work are aware and know it. So thank you for that. It certainly make a huge difference. In terms of the outreach, related to the paid safe and sick leave law, I can tell you that, since 2014, we've done close to 2,500 outreach events citywide to raise awareness on that specific law. We did webinars, for example, in each borough with worker advocacy stakeholders, partners. Some of our partners were nice, Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, La Colmena, Worker Justice Project. We also had a partnership, we talked about this a little bit in my presentation, with Test and Trace to train staff on the paid safe and sick leave and, distribute information during COVID-19 vaccination sites with doctors' offices. And I think in terms of looking forward, more of that, I guess, that we're always going to be looking at where is it that we're going to find the individuals who could benefit from this information, and trying to get out, especially not just us, but informing other stakeholders who are going to help us enhance that information and that message. If you don't mind, I'm going to, for cannabis, I think we're back at the, what we were saying, that we don't have a role in that area. I'll ask my team to fill in any gaps there after I cover at least the dark stores that you're referencing. I've read some of the articles as well. Right now, for example, we have the new legislation from last year, right, on third-party delivery workers. And to the extent that there might be delivery workers that fall under that category, not for food, but other items, that is one of the things that we're looking to do as part of the blueprint to expand protections for other than food delivery workers. When it comes to, dark stores, if their structure is such that they're employees, they wouldn't, as opposed to independent contractors as the delivery, third-party app delivery workers, and then, they wouldn't be covered by that new legislation, but there certainly are other worker protections, including paid safe and sick leave, that they will be subject to, and most importantly, our consumer protection laws. That is something that we would always be looking to make sure that all businesses in New York are complying with.
Yeah, but it's not clear. It's not clear what they are. I think they're a warehouse, but like I've been in a lot of them. I sneak in and I take pictures. And what they have are rows and rows of unidentified products with no prices. So my question is, are they supposed to have prices? Because they say they're not a warehouse. Warehouses don't need prices. So I don't know what they are, and nor does anybody else, but I didn't know if your inspectors had visited them. Maybe you don't know what to do. I was wondering what's the status according to you?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna see my general counsel can help me here with addressing those specifics.
Hi, I think you raised the same problem that we would have, right? We're not sure what they are. Our understanding from the information we've gotten is that they are not the kinds of places where consumers can just walk in off of the street, pick up a product, pay for it, and walk out. That everything happens online, and the options that you have are to go pick it up or arrange for delivery. So if that is in... Sorry. Okay. So if that is in fact the case, what would apply to them would be different from if they were, what would be considered to be at retail. You could walk off the street, pick up a product, pay for it, and walk out. So I think we would absolutely need a better understanding of what they are, what we think they are today. They wouldn't need to be pricing things.
Okay.
But that depends on their model.
I'm glad you're confused too. Maybe you could help your sister agencies get unconfused. But that's my role. I'm on their case. Just going back to I know that you're not cannabis, but let me tell you, these tobacco stores, for lack of a better word, what's going to happen? Because you're going to have to work. You regulate, I assume, the cigarettes and the tobacco. And then you have now cannabis, and these stores are all going to be selling. The signs are already up, at least in my neighborhood. So are you going to work with the state to do the regulation? How's that all going to collaborate? Because I'm already getting a lot of consumer complaints, as you can imagine.
Thank you, Councilmember. I mean, as we monitor the rollout of the state office, we'll be sure to, paying attention and make sure that we're familiarized with anything that would fall under our purview so that we are prepared to tackle any of that.
Okay, all right. And how many tobacco licenses were issued last year compared to this year, or at least if there's any comparison possible? Do you have that information, or could you let us know?
I don't think we have those exact numbers, but we can definitely get those to you.
But Councilmember, it's important for I think you may know that tobacco licenses are capped by community districts. So unless we're not issuing new ones unless unless that number dips below the cap, and that's set statutorily by the council, by the past council. And I do want to note that this agency, of course, takes a very strong posture on any kind of unlawful tobacco sales, whether it be by electronic or traditional cigarette or tobacco dealers. They're among the highest fines that we issue. Those that seek to engage in unlicensed activity are often subject to fines in the tens of thousands of dollars, depending on circumstance, of course. And we want to hear from you. Of course, it sounds like your constituency may be subject to some unlicensed activity or sale to minors. I'm not sure what, but we definitely want to know about that. Please contact us. We'll have our staff reach out to your staff directly to get the addresses, and we'll deploy enforcement to those areas.
No, I appreciate that. I think what's going to happen, understandably, is between the cannabis, we'll go into the tobacco stores. And I think we just have to make sure that we understanding to the public and working with whomever is regulating cannabis, because right now it says vape and dispensary. That's what the signs are stating. And so it sounds like you're already legal to do all of this. I'm just saying it's confusing to the public. And so the question is, how do we unconfuse the public and make sure legality is what's happening? So I bring that to your attention. I'm really good at knowing what's going to happen next in terms of scams. So that's one of them right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll now turn it back to the chair for further questions. Chair?
First of all, I wanted to recognize my colleague, Councilmember Krishnan, who has joined us. I wanted to follow up. I know I jumped in directly into street vendors, but wanted to discuss what's your agency's budget priorities right now, and do you anticipate any additional resources needed?
Thank you, Councilmember. I think, we talked about the numbers in terms of our almost $63 million. We're constantly, looking at our processes to make things more efficient just in general. And, we are always in communications with OMB if we need any additional resources for any new mandates. Part of that was the new mandate we got for the third-party app delivery workers and licensing. So we did get additional resources there. And if there are any new mandates that come, we will be doing the same, engaging with them in conversations to ensure we have what we need.
Vacancies. So as part of the mayor's program to eliminate the gap, the prelim plan includes a peg that would eliminate positions at DCWP. Can you tell us what types of positions were eliminated and how many are there?
I'm going to ask my Nick to help me with that because I don't want to mess up the numbers.
For that question, Councilmember. So we received a cut of 26 headcount. They will be spread across all divisions proportionally. That was the fairest way to minimize the impact per division. So it is spread evenly across all units in the agency.
How does this impact the department's plans moving forward?
We don't anticipate a negative impact, but if we, have any concerns, we'll be sure to continue our conversations with OMB and make sure that we have the necessary resources.
And it's important to note as it relates to the PEG that the headcount that our Assistant Commissioner mentioned, largely in terms of the personnel side of things, was a vacancy reduction. So it wasn't as if there was capacity lost or people, were removed from the agency. There's also an OTPS reduction and efficiencies that we found in order to meet our PEG. So I do want to make that clarification.
Okay, actually, that was like leading into my next question. So did you have any challenges in filling, what have been those challenges, filling those vacancies? And I guess moving forward, what does the operation planning look like?
I think at the moment we are continuing to do all the work and able to complete and fulfill all of the mandates for the agency. The vacancies that we've had, they've all been posted. We just onboarded, how many people we just onboarded since January?
46 people. 46
people since January. So we're, continuing to do what we need to get the team, be fully staffed and keep doing all the good work.
All right, thank you so much. And now I'll turn it back to our moderator.
Great, thank you, Chair. That concludes the administration's portion of the hearing. We will now turn to public testimony. I'd like to remind everyone that, unlike our typical council hearings, we will call individuals one by one to testify. Each panelist will be given 2 minutes to speak. Please begin once the sergeant has started the timer. Council members who have questions for a particular panelist should use the raise hand function in Zoom, and I will call on you after the panelist has completed their testimony. For panelists, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you and the Sergeant at Arms will give you the go-ahead to begin upon setting the timer. Please wait for the Sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. As we said at the outset of the hearing, if you'd like to submit written testimony for the record, you may do so by emailing your testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov. I would like to now welcome Hildalyn Colon Hernandez to testify, followed by Shanna Talarico, and then Amanda Bransford. Hildalyn?
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Hildalyn Colon, and I'm the Director of Policy and Strategic Partnerships for Los Deliveristas. Appreciate the time to speak to you all. I'm talking here regarding the issues of the delivery workers. We represent the organization that makes some of the laws that you got discussed kind of like happen. We want to raise to this committee the importance that the agencies have the economic resources to make sure that we continue the education process. I want to highlight what Councilmember Gil Brewer says, the need that people needs to know their rights and enforcement portion too. But I think it's also as we go into the biggest expansion, which is going to be the minimum pay starting January 1st in 2023. There's a lot of things that the agency has to do in terms of collecting data, analyzing data, doing all these things in a timely fashion. So that's part of like not only making sure that they support it, they've been with us in the street, and we will continue working with them. But more than anything, I want to highlight the importance that the city have to, the need to support a budgetary that creates an infrastructure for delivery workers to gather and for make sure to do this work much easier. We're talking about 65,000 people. And what we believe is a growing industry, right? We see more delivery workers out there, more apps joining our city. What Council Brewer raised about this kind of like new, kind of like delivery apps that we don't know still what they are, either they're deliveries or they're not. So there's a lot of things here that we need to do. So I want to highlight the importance about kind of like what we propose, which is a Deliverista hub, and see how we can fund that initially, which the idea is to bring workers that they're already here in my office to get the services about wage theft, about not getting paid, about getting deactivated, about accidents, fatalities. So that's something that we really want to highlight it to this committee, and we want to definitely, we will work with the city council members and Chair Velasquez to make sure that this is kind of like, as the point, these laws are not matters from day and life for workers, but we set in what the national standard will be across the board. Thank you.
Time expired.
Thank you. Next, we'd like to call Shanna Tellerico to testify, followed by Amanda Bransford, and then Ligia Gualpa. Shanna?
Good
Starting
afternoon.
time.
Thank you for letting me be here today to testify. My name is Shauna Tellerico, and I'm a senior supervising attorney at the New York Legal Assistance Group, and I am an attorney with the Consumer Protection Unit. NILAG would like to thank the council for its generous funding provided in fiscal year 2022, but we want to discuss specifically today funding for consumer debt. The economic and social consequences of insufficient civil legal service funding for consumer-related debt cases are significant and often overlooked by civil legal service funders. Consumer debt cases are sometimes disregarded as illegal problems that do not involve the essentials of life. However, consumer debt litigation threatens New Yorkers' limited wages and assets, which in turn threatens the essentials of life, such as housing, basic income, and safety. Today, I'd like to focus on 3 areas of consumer debt that, based on our experience, are in dire need of additional legal services. First, fighting unfair and deceptive practices in automobile lending. The level of fraud in automobile lending is well documented in New York. Consumers face interest rates close to 25%. They face fraud, and consumer advocates who are familiar with this industry only expect this to get a lot worse due to skyrocketing costs of used cars and the perverse incentive this creates for parties looking to profit at the expense of consumers. Last, I'd like to talk about student loans and rental arrears. Rental arrears are cases that former or current landlords are filing against tenants to pressure them to leave their housing. And student loans, as we all know, is a $1 trillion problem, and New Yorkers have close to 90 million in student debt and desperately need legal services to help them with their federal and private student loan debt. I thank you, and I will be submitting written testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'd like to invite Amanda Bransford, followed by Ligia Gualpa, and then Andy Bowen. Amanda?
Starting time.
It appears that Amanda is no longer on in the hearing, so we will move on to the next registered witness. We have Ligia Gualpa next, followed by Andy Bowen, and then Clara Calvo. Ligia?
Starting time.
Mute. Okay, there it is. So first of all, thank you so much, Chairwoman Marjorie Velasquez and members of the Consumer and Worker Protection Committee. I'm here on behalf of Workers' Justice Project, along with Hilda Lee, who's also part of Workers' Justice Project and Los Deliveristas Unidos. I'm the executive director of WJP, which is an organization that represents not only deliveristas, but also house cleaners, day laborers who are and continue to be essentials to our city's recovery. New York City's economic recovery relies on the labor of low-wage workers. Those like day laborers who repair and clean New Yorkers' homes, prepares and delivers your food, your medicine, and keep us all safe in our economy moving forward. In order to help them to move forward, we're urging New York City Council to demonstrate its commitment to protect and honor essential workers by investing in key citywide initiatives. One is in the Day Labor Workforce Initiative, where we're asking $5.4 million, and also $1 million in the Low Wage Support Initiative. And as Hilda Lee has said, in funding in the development of these deliverista hubs. WJP has a history of demonstrating that New York can lead the way in protecting essential workers. And we demonstrated last year by advocating for the passage of 6 legislations that will rewrite the rules of gig work in New York City. What we're offering this year is that there is a new way to building co-enforcement mechanisms. There is so much more to do to protect low-wage immigrant workers through the Day Labor Workforce Initiatives. We're building new pathways of workforce development that will allow not only cleaners, but also day laborers and construction workers to enter in the construction industry with site safety training protections, but also to make sure that they know their rights. We're asking your support to continue not only to sustain our worker centers, but also lead the way on building new ways of protecting New York City's essential workers. And we look forward to working with you all and counting with your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'd like to call Andy Bowen to testify, followed by Clara Calvo, and then on to Nguyen. Andy?
Starting time.
Good afternoon, Chair Velasquez and the council members and staff of the New York City Council Committee on Consumer and Worker Protections. My name is Andy Bowen and my son is watching Sesame Street behind me. Sorry for the noise. I'm a policy and advocacy consultant for the New York City Network of Worker Cooperatives, also known as NCNOC, the local trade association representing worker cooperative businesses and democratic workplaces in the New York City metropolitan area. I'm here with my colleagues from NYC's cooperative ecosystem, all in support of the 13 organizations that make up the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative, or WCBDI. We ask the City Council to continue supporting WCBDI in the FY23 budget at $5.012 million. Since the inception of the initiative in FY15, WCBDI partners in the worker co-op ecosystem have created over 175 new cooperatives and businesses and approximately 1,000 new jobs that are not only providing higher hourly wages, but also building wealth and assets for individuals who are overwhelmingly women, BIPOC, and immigrants. We've seen how the initiative has served to bolster our sector, strengthening existing cooperative businesses and creating new ones, which are overwhelmingly immigrant and women owned. The initiative partners have collectively worked to create a comprehensive system of support for cooperative businesses that not only ensures the creation of new cooperatives in low-income areas, but also the technical assistance needed to sustain businesses and create jobs, as well as the education and outreach needed for communities, interested entrepreneurs, and allied organizations. It has been an inspiration to work with them for the last 2 years, seeing their heroic response to the COVID crisis, supporting and saving businesses, all things that are mentioned in greater detail in the written testimony. Please support the enhancement of WCBDI in FY23 to $5.012 million. We also support our allies in the proposed domestic worker and employer empowerment initiative we're speaking at this hearing, whose disclosure I work with. And as ever, we seek your support for commercial rent stabilization when that bill is released this session. Thank you, Chair, other council members, and staff for making it possible to testify. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Andy. Next, we'll be calling on Clara Calvo, followed by Antu Nguyen, and then Gail Johnson. I believe Andy will be providing a translation for Clara. So Clara, you may begin.
Starting time.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, honorable presidente y distinguido miembro del Comité de Consejo de la Ciudad de New York para la protección del consumidor y de los trabajadores. Me llamo Clara Calvo, soy trabajadora dueña de Cooperativa Home Care Association, miembro del Consejo de NICNA, del Consejo de Abogacía. Llegué a los Estados Unidos en el 1995 desde República Dominicana, buscando una oportunidad para mejorar mi vida y la de mis 3 niños. Durante 5 años trabajé muchas horas con horarios impredecibles, en ambiente de trabajo desafiante. Mientras ganaba poco dinero, era difícil llegar al fin del mes. En el 2000 encontré a Cooperativa Home Care Association, una empresa con sede en el Bronx que forma empleos y trabajadores de atención domiciliaria. Me inscribí en el programa de formación gratuita de 4 semanas. Una vez completado mi entrenamiento, comencé a trabajar en dicha empresa. Poco después comencé mi carrera como Home Health Aide. Me uní al Departamento de Trabajo de Dueños de la Junta Directiva en varios mandatos. Trabajadores propietarios, soy líder comunitario y propietario information de la, perdóneme que se me confunden una con otra, información y orientación de mis compañeras. Siempre vivo dándole informaciones a mis compañeras. Creo que soy una increíble reflejo y el modelo de cooperativista de trabajo y asociado. Y el trabajo de las cooperativas es tan poderoso y fortalecedor necesario para la protección de los trabajadores. Al igual que mi cooperativa, hay un gran número de cooperativas en la ciudad de New York con diferentes actividades económicas, desde limpieza, de cuidado de los ancianos, cuidado de niños y mucho más servicio. Ayudan al crecimiento económico de esta ciudad. La pandemia nos dio muchos estragos, ya que muchas empresas tuvieron que cerrar, muchas cooperativas no la pasaron muy bien. La que estamos sucediendo, la que estamos prosperando en el mercado, queremos que nos den un poco de apoyo y nos ayuden a continuar en el área, que así la ciudad de New York se fortalece y es más fácil la vida. Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson. This is the translation. Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson and distinguished members of the New York City Council Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection. My name is Clara Calvo, and I am a worker owner at Cooperative Home Care Associates, CHCA, and a member of the New York City Network of Cooperatives Advocacy Council. I came to the United States in 1995 from the Dominican Republic looking for an opportunity to improve my life and the life of my 3 children. For 5 years, I worked long hours, unpredictable schedules, and in challenging work environments while making very little money. It was difficult to make ends meet. In 2000, I founded Cooperative Home Care Associates, CHCA, a Bronx-based company that trains and employs home care workers. I found Cooperative Home Care Associates. I enrolled in the 4-week free training program, and upon my successful completion of the training program, was employed by the cooperative. Shortly after beginning my career at CHCA, I joined the company as a worker owner and have served on the board for multiple terms. Whether as a board member or worker owner, I am always an engaged leader providing insight and guidance to my fellow worker owners. I believe I am an amazing reflection of why the model of a worker cooperative is so powerful, transformative, and necessary for worker protection. Like my cooperative, there are a number of cooperatives in New York City with different economic activities, from cleaning, support to the elderly, childcare, and a lot more services that help the economic growth of this city. The pandemic wreaked havoc on our worker cooperatives and small businesses. Some failed to survive and close their doors, and others are suffering the economic consequences. With the support of the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative, partners, our cooperatives have sustained the challenges of the pandemic. If cooperatives grow, if you support us, we will have many more people who can join our businesses and build a more secure and committed workforce, giving New York City a leg up in its economic growth. Your support, your commitment to cooperatives is necessary and urgent in our growth so that we are not another number in the statistics of small businesses that have disappeared as a result of the pandemic due to lack of support. We hope that you will consider WCBDI budget priorities and recommendations during this year's budget negotiation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara and Andy. Next, we'll be calling on Antu Nguyen to testify, followed by Gail Johnson and then Alex Stein. Antu?
Thank you.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, Chair Velasquez and distinguished members of the New York City Council Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection. It's an honor to address you all as I submit testimony in support of the hardworking worker owners in our communities. My name is Antu Nguyen, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Democracy at Work Institute, also known as DOWI by our partners. On behalf of DOWI and the 13 organizations that make up the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative, or WCBDI, we thank you for the opportunity to speak about economic development in our communities and worker cooperatives' unique ability to establish, grow, and retain community wealth. Since 2014, your support has helped WCBDI transform this potential into real change for working families in our communities. The initiative has created more than 1,000 jobs and pathways of business ownership. We've reached more than 9,000 entrepreneurs with education and technical assistance services. We've created more than 175 new worker cooperative businesses that are providing higher hourly wages, better working conditions, and building wealth and equity for workers, as well as staying safer during COVID. In addition, DOWI and other WCBDI members like Center for Family Life, New York City Network of Worker Cooperatives, and Workers' Justice Project are developing worker owner leadership and civic engagement as advocates, partnering with the DCWP Paid Care Advocate, National Domestic Workers Alliance, 1199 SEIU, and policymakers at the local and state levels to improve worker conditions in the care industry. In the past 8 years, with deep, committed, and consistent City Council support, the WCBDI has worked to build a comprehensive ecosystem capable of bringing new jobs to communities most in need, building successful local businesses, and providing the technical assistance, education, and outreach required to ensure success. The outcome is that New York City continues to be the largest worker cooperative ecosystem in the U.S. and a model for sustainable, inclusive economic development for cities across the country, including Boston, Philadelphia, San Jose, and Madison following our lead. New York is also home to the largest worker cooperative in the country, Cooperative Home Care Associates in the Bronx, which has more than 2,000 workers and has become a model for high-road home healthcare industry practices nationally.
Time expired.
Worker cooperatives are a haven for workers in low-wage industries who have been traditionally marginalized. In New York City, the majority of worker owners are women from communities of color in industries like janitorial services, home healthcare, and childcare. Through worker ownership, these individuals are bringing home living wages, building assets that contribute to financial stability, building worker power and leadership, and transforming industry standards for better over time. We urge City Council to support worker cooperatives with an enhancement by the initiative to $5.012 million for fiscal year 23, so that we can continue to do this important long-term work in support of New York City's economic recovery and resilience. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. We look forward to continuing this work to develop worker leadership and build high-road business models that positively transform industries through worker cooperative businesses.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'd like to call Gail Johnson, followed by Danielle LeBlanc, and then Ben Fuller-Guggens. Gail?
Starting time.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Marjorie Velasquez, distinguished members of the Consumer, Worker, and Protection of New York City Council. My name is Gail Johnson. I'm a worker owner at Hopewell Care Childcare Cooperative and a member of Carroll Garden Association. I'm also here on behalf of the 13 organization that makes up the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative, WCBDI. We are grateful for all the effort made over the years by the Department of Worker Protection, especially in the past 2 years as it relates to sick days, sick leave, family leave, vacation, and other COVID protocol for all workers, especially immigrant worker. But there has been countless sessions in our organization, Carroll Garden platform, where we did a lot of informative session and presented information on workers' rights. However, immigrant workers, especially nannies, housekeepers, home health aid workers experience tremendous difficulties in the homes of employers. And it's hard for most of them to stand up for themselves. Just picture this in your mind, just like a little example. You're an immigrant, you are happy to have a job to support your family, and in most cases, your English is not proficient, and your employer are not allowing you to get simple things like bathroom break, lunch time, sick time, time off to care for your sick child. You're being sexually harassed, insulted on a daily basis, and threatened with deportation because they know your status. So these workers feel alone and hopeless. And most immigrants, especially undocumented, don't want to cause any problem. You know, they don't want to report to the Department of Consumer and Labor Affairs, even if they know they couldn't do that. And they don't want to speak to an attorney. So what
Time
happens?
expired.
They let it slide, they move to the next job, and then the abuse continue. So nannies, housekeepers, and cleaners specifically, I'm talking about today, get dismissed for being sick, pregnant, and for asking for overtime. So there are many wonderful employees out there, and I'm so thankful to all of you for making this working experience great for all. But there's also a culture of suppression on the part of workers, where employees can come together to ignore these human rights guidelines that the Department of Worker and Consumer Protection enact. We hope to get you on board, as you have done in the past, along with other supporting organizations, to create a direct enforcement policy to eradicate all of these practices, therefore creating a safe and healthy work environment for all. And we trust that you will support WCBDI in the same ask like ANTU of $5.012 million, so we can work collectively with other organizations to raise these standards. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'd like to call Danielle LeBlanc, followed by Ben Fuller Guggens, and then Yolande Arthur. Danielle?
Starting time.
Hello. Thank you for letting me testify here today. My name is Danielle LeBlanc, and I work at Green Worker Cooperatives, or GWC. We are part of the $5.0012 million ask of the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative for FY23. We are located in Hutch Point in the South Bronx and work with BIPOC women, immigrant, and queer Bronxites and New Yorkers. Through our Co-op Learning Institute, individuals with dreams of entrepreneurship learn the tools they need to pool their talents and resources together to launch their own cooperative businesses. The program includes a weekly 2-hour classroom training, one-on-one coaching, pro bono legal assistance with business formation, and ongoing support after program graduation. Topics covered include business model development, customer relationships, and marketing. And we also do community engagement to promote cooperative businesses within the Bronx and the wider NYC communities. Our co-ops are dedicated to providing services needed in their communities. For example, Solar Uptown Now Services, or SUNS, is a solar installation cooperative dedicated to climate justice, job training, and an ownership stake in renewable energy for local communities of color. The 10 worker owners who formed SUNS received solar installation training and a workforce development program, but did not find jobs afterwards. They attended GWC and legally formed their cooperative a few months after graduating. They recently earned a NYSERDA grant for solar installation in Upper Manhattan. Why support GWC and the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative? In the words of Joselina Tejeda, a worker owner of We Are Earth in Brooklyn, GWC helped me and my team gain the knowledge needed to start up our co-op. GWC walked us through the steps of how to create a business model canvas, research potential customers, and make connections with other co-ops and potential partners. I greatly recommend GWC to anyone who is interested in starting a co-op but has limited or no experience. Plus, the GWC network is a great resource that you can always come back to long after you've left the program. Thank you for your time, and we hope for your continued support.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'd like to call Ben Fuller Guggens to testify, followed by Yolande Arthur and then Alex Stein. Ben?
Starting time.
Thank you and good afternoon,
everyone. Thank you, Chair Velasquez and council members of the committee for offering me time to speak this afternoon. My name is Ben. I'm the Deputy Director with the Carroll Gardens Association and a member of the New York City Coalition for Domestic Work. Our coalition we founded last year with the National Domestic Workers Alliance, New York City chapter, ADICAR, and hand in hand, the Domestic Employers Network. Together, we represent over 30,000 domestic workers and employers across New York City. And I'm here this afternoon to request your support for the Domestic Worker and Employer Empowerment Initiative. This would be a brand new City Council initiative for FY23 that will provide much needed and overdue funding for outreach, education, and enforcement to over 5,000 domestic workers in this year alone. Across New York City, there's over 200,000 domestic workers. Over the past 10 years, many of us in this room have been part of transformative victories, winning the Domestic Work Bill of Rights, passing safe and sick leave, and most recently HO 339. And yet, we consistently on a day-to-day basis still hear cases of wage theft, harassment, contract violation. So we know there's a huge gap in meeting the needs so that workers know their rights and how to enforce them. Our initiative, we're requesting $300,000 among our organizations that will enable our coalition to broaden our capacity to conduct comprehensive outreach to both employers and workers across the city so that they know their rights and how to enforce them. Tomorrow, many of you will be also joining us and DWCP for the celebration and passage of Intro 339, which I think represents such an important opportunity to both celebrate another hard-fought win and recognize that when we have these wins, don't have the funds to resource them to outreach and education, and they don't mean as much to workers and employers across the city. So thank you for their time. I'm very excited to be working with you all and establishing this first of its kind initiative.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we'd like to call Yolande Arthur and then Alex Stein. Yolande?
Starting time.
Thank you, Chairperson Marjorie Velasquez and council members of the committee for offering me time to speak this afternoon. My name is Yolande Arthur, and I'm a member leader of the Carroll Gardens Nanny Association and a domestic worker for 15 years. I've worked as a nanny and has faced many issues on the job, one of which is working with triplets, and also did housework for, less than $10 an hour, and was very overwhelmed on the job. When I work over 40 hours, I would never get time and a half. It was very overwhelming, and I was not treated fairly. I shared my story with other nannies whom were faced with similar situations, some of which were terminated on their job without cause and didn't get compensated. I was introduced to the Carroll Gardens Nanny Association and did a course, a We Rise course there, where I learned about my rights. I worked hard alongside many others to win Intro 339, and I'm glad we finally have basic human rights protections. And I know my fellow domestic workers will know about the law and how to enforce it. Funding for this initiative will ensure we are able to do so. Will ensure that we're able to do the broad outreach needed to ensure we all know our rights. Thanks for your time, Chair Velasquez and committee members. We look forward to working with you in ensuring that the rights for domestic workers across our city are enforced. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And a reminder for any further testimonies that they must be on topic. If testimony is provided as off topic, you will be muted. Next, we'd like to call Alex Stein to testify. Alex?
Starting time.
Thank you so much. And the reason why we're here today is the DCWP has not protected me. I lost my job for missing time after what they considered was an elective surgery. For me, as a trans man, getting a mastectomy was not an elective surgery. But for this smoothie franchise located in 30 Rockefeller Center, they said that I had to lose my job because I missed a month of work because of complications after the surgery. Now, when I reach out to the DCWP and I ask them for protection, they say nothing. They have a huge budget. New York City is one of the highest tax places in the world, yet I get no protection. I'm financially destitute, basically. Luckily, I'm living with a significant other that's helping me, but the DCW is not standing up for trans people. For me, a mastectomy was a rite of passage. It wasn't some elective surgery. Ooh, I'm just going to have this for fun. For me, that was who I truly was. And do I get protected the same as a non-trans person? No. And I'm fully vaccinated. There's other employees that work there that weren't boosted. So at the same time, I was in a position where I was very vulnerable. So being a vulnerable person in New York City, when I reach out to this help, to the social services that I depend on, I don't get the same sort of help as a normal person would. So I would just like to point out the bigotry and the racism, and I would really like to put a magnifying glass on trying to help other trans people that are having issues and that are being discriminated against, because we don't live in a perfect world. Now, although New York City is very progressive, it's not progressive enough, because these social services still consider a mastectomy an elective procedure. And for me, becoming who I really am, Alex was not. I'm going to be honest. I sit here and I'm very emotional and I'm trying to keep myself in check, but it's very hard because I see a budget with so much money and so much power, and you guys refuse to help me. And I don't know why. I don't know why I have to be a target of ridicule and humiliation from our members. I know there's council members here that are very powerful. I know that. Councilmember Brewer, you could help me. You refuse to. I've reached out to you many times. So for me, we have to understand I need help. And I really would like the DCWP to do more for trans rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. That concludes our public testimony. However, if we have inadvertently missed anyone who is registered to testify today and has yet to be called, okay, I see, please use the Zoom raise hand function, anyone that we may have missed, but I see that Catherine Merchek has not been called on yet, so we'll call on you now to testify, Catherine.
Starting time.
Thank you so much for making this hearing virtual. I wouldn't have been able to attend otherwise. My name is Catherine Mercek, pronounced she, her. I'm a worker owner at Samam Kaya Yoga Back Care and Scoliosis Collective. We're a worker-owned cooperative based in Chelsea. And we're a member of the New York City Network of Worker Cooperatives, which is a member of the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative. And it's also a member of a number of different coalitions, including the United for Small Business Coalition. And I'm testifying today to just urge you to support, continue supporting worker co-ops. We've really appreciated the funding over the last 6 years, and that's helped my co-op and our community immensely. The WCBDI's enhancement ask is $5.01 million. And I think that's incredibly reasonable considering the amount of support and jobs that they save. For example, with Worker Cooperative, we're a democratic business and we're values-based businesses. And so we follow tenets of cooperation. We make sure that all the workers are well taken care of and every worker has a vote. So it's an incredible way to protect worker rights because the workers are owners, and that means if the business isn't doing well, the workers aren't doing well, and vice versa. So we really want to make sure that all the workers are well taken care of. And in addition, I'd also urge the City Council to consider passing legislation to pass commercial rent stabilization. It's a bill that we were working on last session, and we were not able to bring it to a vote, but this affects workers tremendously because if you think about over 50% of workers in New York City are engaged in a small business in some way. And when there is no legal recourse, when landlords are able to raise the rent as much as 50%, 100%, 400% at the end of the lease, then that can put the business out of business, and that can put the workers out of work. So both commercial rent stabilization and support for worker co-ops are essential for helping to protect workers and consumers. Thank you so much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you. And we'll give another few seconds here to allow anyone to raise their hand on Zoom if we have missed you and you have registered to testify today. Okay, seeing no further hands raised, I will turn it over to Chair Velasquez to offer closing remarks.
want to thank my staff. I want to thank committee staff for this hearing today. As we move forward, it's important to make sure that we're protecting both our consumers and our workers here, not only for today, but thinking about our future and how we can work together to make sure that New York City is back better than ever. So thank you all, and I look forward to the next hearing.